Welcome to Sean's Stories, where African hearts speak and unforgettable tales come alive. The morning sun spilled gently across the silk sheets of the Banana Island mansion. Birds chirped, the scent of hibiscus drifted in from the garden. And inside the master bedroom, Savannah Idu stirred softly beneath Marvin Khalifa's arm. Encore, their daughter, Amaria Legacy. Khalifa was barely 3 weeks old, already the pride of her father's heart. Savannah rose carefully, her silky robe flowing as she padded barefoot to the bassinet. Amaria lay curled like a warm secret, swaddled in cream lace, her tiny fist curled near her cheek. "She looks like you," Marvin's gravel voice rumbled behind her. Savannah smiled without turning. "Poor girl." "No," he said, now behind her, shirtless, sleepy-eyed. "Lucky girl." He wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. In that moment, there was no Mafia, no blood, no scars. Just the family they were becoming. "I've been thinking," Savannah whispered. Marvin lifted a brow. "About?" "A christening. Something small, quiet. Just friends, not capos." Marvin tensed. Just slightly, but she felt it. "You're afraid," he said. "No, I'm protective." There was a difference, a mother's instinct, and hers had been screaming since the day they brought Amaria home. Later that day, Madame Ozioma, Marvin's mother, arrived in a flurry of silk and perfume. She kissed Savannah's cheek, held Amaria with practiced grace, and eyed her son sharply. "Have you thought about your next move?" she asked him while rocking the baby. Marvin sat back in his chair, silent. "Your enemies haven't forgotten," she warned. "You may have found peace, Marvin, but the world still sees you as a weapon." Savannah bit her lip. She hated this part, the strategy, the whispers, the war that always lingered just behind the walls. But Marvin just stood, kissed his daughter's forehead, and said, "Let them come." That evening, as the sky melted into golden dusk, Savannah sat by the koi pond outside. She held Amaria to her chest and whispered lullabies from her childhood. Then she saw something on the water, a small object floating. She reached in. It was a velvet box. Inside it was a single bullet, wrapped in a piece of lace, the exact lace from Amaria's christening dress. Savannah's hands trembled. And across the pond, a single white rose bobbed toward her freshly clipped. The quiet was over. The storm had found them again. Savannah didn't scream. She simply stood there, barefoot by the koi pond, staring at the lace-wrapped bullet in her palm, her breath frozen mid-lullaby. The koi swam on, oblivious. But the rose was soaked in something darker now. Crimson. Inside the mansion, Marvin was on a business call when she stormed in. He saw her face pale, shaking, and immediately dropped the phone. "What happened?" Savannah slammed the box under the marble table. "This, outside, by the water." Marvin opened it. Silence. Then his jaw clenched so tight his teeth nearly cracked. "Who knew you were planning a christening?" he asked darkly. Savannah's voice was barely a whisper. "Only you, your mother, and 2 of your most trusted men." Marvin didn't move, didn't blink, but his entire body shifted. His calm shattered. The man who once ruled Lagos's underworld was back. Within the hour, the mansion's staff were cleared, security doubled, drones hovered, and Marvin stood in the center of his command room, shirtless, tattoos dark against his skin, arms folded as his men filed in. "Whoever sent this," he said, raising the bullet between 2 fingers, "wants me emotional, weak, exposed." He looked at his right-hand man. "I want eyes in Abuja, Port Harcourt, Morocco. Start with Zahara's network. This reeks of her." "But boss," one man said carefully, "Zahara was in Turkey last we heard, hospitalized." Marvin's voice dropped like ice. "She's never truly gone, not until she's in the ground." Later that night, Savannah held Amaria close while Madame Ozioma helped her pack an emergency bag, just in case. "You should leave for a few days," the older woman said. "Take the baby. Go to the Abuja estate. Let Marvin handle this. But Savannah shook her head. No, I'm not running. I'm not just his lover or some trophy. I'm his peace, and his peace has to stand beside him. Madame Ozioma gave her a long, proud look. Then you are stronger than I ever was. At exactly midnight, a package arrived at the gates. No sender, just a blood-stained parcel. Inside were two things: a severed pinky finger wrapped in a napkin from Marvin's favorite private restaurant, and a note. She took what was mine. Now I'll take what is hers. Tick-tock, Marvin. Savannah read the note once, then looked at Marvin, who was holding Amaria now, rocking her softly. He didn't say a word. But in his eyes, something old had returned. Not rage, not fear, but vengeance. And this time, he wouldn't miss. At dawn, the mansion glowed in soft gold, and peace, or something like it, hovered in the nursery. Savannah leaned over Amaria's crib, humming gently, exhausted but clinging to these quiet seconds before the storm returned. The baby stirred, her lashes fluttering, her lips curving upward. A soft smile. Her first. Savannah gasped. Marvin! She smiled. He stepped in, still dressed in black from the night's silent meetings. The same man who could break bones with a glance. Crumbled. He bent down slowly and touched Amaria's tiny cheek. She smiled at you, Savannah whispered. No, Marvin said, his voice low and reverent. She smiled at hope. 2 hours later, Marvin Khalifa slit a man's throat in a cold marble bathroom in Victoria Island. No audience, no screams. Just one name whispered in the dying man's ear. Tell her I'm coming. The body was dumped in a warehouse freezer in Apapa. Marvin walked away clean, cold, and silent. A father by morning, a killer by noon. Back home, Savannah wasn't stupid. She saw the look in Marvin's eyes when he came back, the calm mask of a man who had let the devil borrow his hands for a few hours. You promised me peace, she said. I'm buying it, he replied. Savannah stood, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. Don't forget the cost. Later that night, they bathed Amaria together. She giggled as Marvin poured warm water down her back. Savannah's heart swelled watching them, her ruthless man so soft, so undone. I don't want her first steps to be in a hallway lined with guards, Savannah murmured. She won't have to, Marvin said, wiping his daughter's hair. I'll finish this, and then, he paused. Then I'll try. Try what? To be the man who doesn't need blood to protect what he loves. Savannah looked at him, then really looked. And for the first time, she believed he meant it. But just as peace began to take root again, a call came in, and Zahara's name flashed across the screen. She was alive, in Lagos, and she wanted to talk. It started with perfume. A scent thick with oud, danger, and Moroccan jasmine, the kind of fragrance that lingered long after love had died. Savannah smelled it before she even stepped into the lounge. When she entered, she froze. Zahara was there, crossed legs, blood-red nails, gown tighter than breath, and a smirk that could make poison taste sweet. Savannah's hand tightened on the doorframe. You're brave, she said quietly, coming here uninvited. Zahara sipped her champagne. And you're still just a maid in designer heels. Marvin entered then, calm, cold, regal in his black-on-black suit. His eyes flicked once to Zahara, then to Savannah. He walked straight to Savannah, placed his hand around her waist, and kissed her slow and deep. Zahara's smirk wavered. I didn't come for games, Marvin, she snapped. Good, he said, voice like steel, because I don't play games with the past. She stood now, heels clicking against the marble. You loved me once. No, he said. I needed you once. That's not love. Zahara's jaw clenched. I protected you. You betrayed me. I gave you power. You gave me scars. He stepped forward now, each word deliberate. I would move mountains for Savannah. I would stand with her between the heavens and the earth. She didn't break me to love me. She healed me to keep me. Zahara's eyes burned. And what about our bloodline? What we built? Marvin didn't flinch. We built an empire of ash. Savannah gave me fire and peace. Zahara turned to Savannah. You really think this ends with lullabies and christenings? You stole him. You think I'll just disappear? Savannah stepped forward now, unshaken. No, I think you'll try and fail, because this time he doesn't love you. Zahara blinked, and Marvin added softly, I never did. She left, but not in silence. As she passed Savannah, she leaned in and whispered, Every queen has her war, sweetheart. Let's see how long your crown stays on. Then she disappeared through the doors, leaving the scent of rage behind. That night, Marvin lay with Savannah on the rooftop, Mary asleep between them. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For choosing me, again. He looked at her, firelight dancing in his eyes. I don't choose you, Savannah. She stiffened slightly. He leaned in. I belong to you. The day began like any other. Sunlight spilled across the marble floors. Amaria giggled in her crib. Savannah hummed as she clipped roses in the garden, her peace finally blooming after weeks of shadows. But peace never lasts long in the life of a king. And queens are always the first to bleed. At 11:48 a.m., the mansion's alarm went off. At 11:49 a.m., the cameras went black. At 11:50 a.m., Marvin received a call. No voice, just a live feed. Savannah, blindfolded, tied to a chair, breathing fast, her cheek bruised. Behind her, Zahara stepped into frame, smiling. Then the call ended. Marvin didn't scream. Hey, he didn't curse. He just stood there, eyes cold, hands trembling before he crushed the phone to pieces. His voice was hoarse, deadly. Lock the gates. No one leaves. No one enters. Not without my permission. He turned to his men. She took my woman. His tone dropped an octave. I'm taking her world. Meanwhile, Savannah was in a warehouse. Dim, cold, wet floors. Zahara circled her like a vulture. Still think he'll come for you? Zahara asked sweetly. Savannah spat blood. He's not coming. He's already here. Zahara laughed. He chose you, but men like Marvin, they always return to war, and war, darling, is my language. Savannah looked up, fire in her eyes. He might have war in his veins, but he has me in his soul, and you can't kill what already owns him. Zahara slapped her. Then let's see what he's willing to lose. Back at the mansion, Marvin opened an old drawer. Inside it, a silver ring with a lion engraved, a black blade soaked in memories, and a photo of his father's grave. He stared at them in silence, then whispered, I left the shadows for her. Now I'll burn the whole city, just to bring her back into the light. By midnight, 5 safe houses had been raided. 10 of Zahara's men were dead. And Marvin, silent, merciless, and cloaked in rage, was heading to the port. Because that's where she was. And God help anyone standing between him and his woman. It was 2:16. AM rain poured down in Lagos like a warning from the heavens. The port was silent. Empty. Too empty. Marvin stepped into the fog like a shadow reborn, dressed in full black, no suit, no title, no mercy. Just a father. Just a man in love. Just a king with nothing left to lose. Behind him, 4 of his deadliest men, silent, armed, and ready to die. Are you sure she's here? One whispered. Marvin didn't answer. He simply stared at the warehouse with blood in his eyes. Then he moved. Inside, Savannah's body ached. Her wrists were raw, her mouth dry, her hope fading. But something inside her refused to break. She'd seen Marvin's face when Amaria smiled. She'd felt his hands shake when he first held her. That wasn't the grip of a monster. That was the touch of a man who finally knew what it meant to live. He was coming. She knew it. She just didn't know what he'd become to save her. When the door exploded off its hinges, Savannah gasped. The smoke cleared, and Marvin stepped in, drenched, armed, furious, and beautiful in his rage. Zahara turned, gun drawn, but Marvin was faster. He shot once, not to kill, to disarm, to hurt. Zahara dropped the gun, blood spilling from her shoulder, screaming. "You're still soft," she spat. "You could have killed me." Marvin stepped over her, like she was nothing. "I'm not here for you." He reached Savannah, untied her, held her, pressed his forehead to hers, and whispered, "You stayed alive for me." Her voice cracked. "You found me." "No," he said. "I never lost you." Zahara laughed from the floor, coughing. "She'll never understand you. She wasn't built for this life." Marvin stood slowly, eyes calm. "I was never meant for this life either," he said. "I was just born into it." Then he raised his gun. Savannah touched his arm. "Don't." He paused, looked at her, then lowered the weapon. "She's not worth your peace," Savannah whispered. "We are." The police found Zahara unconscious. Marvin didn't stay to give a statement. He drove Savannah home, one hand on the wheel, the other holding hers. Neither of them spoke, but in the quiet, something changed. Not just the world, but Marvin himself. He had rescued her, but he wasn't the same man who lost her. The mansion felt colder when they returned. Savannah walked through its grand halls like a stranger in a dream. Everything was the same, the glittering chandelier, the marble floors, the scent of jasmine in the air, but she wasn't. Amaria cried softly from the nursery. Savannah froze. Her hands trembled before she reached for the doorknob. Marvin watched her from the hallway, his expression unreadable. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded, then walked into the nursery. She stared at her daughter. That tiny face, those innocent eyes. Amaria smiled, but Savannah didn't smile back. Instead, she sat on the floor and wept. Not loud, not messy, but the kind of cry that came from bone-deep exhaustion. The kind of cry women only allow themselves when no one's watching. Except Marvin was. He stepped in slowly, knelt beside her, and whispered, "Talk to me." "I wasn't scared of Zahara," Savannah said. "Not really." Marvin waited. "I was scared of what I saw in me." He frowned. "What did you see?" "A woman who could endure pain, who could sit in chains and still spit back fire. That's not who I was, but it's who I had to become." She turned to him. "And I don't know if I like her." Marvin reached for her hand. "Then let me love her. All of her." Savannah laughed bitterly. "You don't even see your own scars, Marvin. You bury them in bullets and blood." He flinched, but didn't deny it. "You've rescued me," she whispered. "But can you rescue yourself?" That night, Marvin stood alone in his office. He stared at a portrait of his father, the original Khalifa king, the man who built an empire by killing everything he loved. Marvin clenched his jaw, then turned and walked out, into the night, into the dark. And for the first time, without a weapon. Meanwhile, Savannah stood before her mirror. She touched her bruised cheek, then looked herself in the eye and said softly, "You're not just a survivor, you're a mother, a queen, a flame." She placed her palm over her belly, where life had once grown, and whispered, "You owe her a better world." Marvin didn't come home that night. Not because he was angry, not because he was out killing, but because he needed to breathe. He drove for hours, no guards, no weapons, no destination. Just the echo of Savannah's words in his head. "You've rescued me, but can you rescue yourself?" The next morning, he returned before sunrise. Savannah was waiting on the balcony, wrapped in a white robe, her hair pinned up, eyes red from a night of no sleep. He walked up behind her quietly. She didn't turn. "I know why you disappeared," she said. He said nothing. She turned to him slowly. "I was raised to believe men protect their families with strength. But what no one tells you is that strength isn't violence. It's restraint. It's knowing when to stop fighting. Marvin looked at her like she was his truth wrapped in skin. I've only ever known war, he said. Savannah stepped closer. Then learn peace. For me. For her. She nodded toward the nursery. For yourself. He cupped her face. You want me to walk away from everything I built? No, she said softly. I want you to walk towards something better. To choose a life that doesn't cost your soul. He didn't answer. So she gave him a choice. If you want this family, if you want me, then build a world where our daughter can run barefoot and not dodge bullets. Build that empire. The next day, Marvin summoned his lawyers, sold his last arms contract, disbanded 2 of his silent networks, and shut down the Kalashnikov pipeline in Eastern Europe. People said he was going soft. They didn't know he was falling in love the right way, for the first time. Later that night, Savannah found him sitting in the nursery, Amaria asleep on his chest. He looked up at her. I didn't leave it all behind for you, he said. She blinked. I left it. For us. She smiled softly. Then let's build something new. Together they looked at their daughter, at the tiny smile blooming across her face in sleep, and knew that love, real love, required more than passion. It required peace. 1 year later, the Banana Island mansion no longer felt like a fortress. The guards were fewer, the meetings less violent. The halls echoed not with fear, but with laughter. Tiny footsteps, giggly squeals, and the smell of vanilla cupcakes from the kitchen. Savannah Idu Khalifa walked barefoot across the cool marble floor, her silk robe trailing behind her, one hand balancing a tiny crown on her daughter's curls. Amaria Legacy Khalifa, 1 year old today, daughter of the man the world once feared and the woman who made him kneel. Outside, the garden was transformed into a dream. Pastel balloons floated beneath chandeliers hung from trees. White roses curled around golden chairs. Soft music played. And at the center of it all stood Marvin Khalifa, no longer in bulletproof suits or blood-soaked boots. Today he wore white linen and peace. The guests arrived slowly, carefully. Not politicians, not mafia leaders, but family, old friends, aunties with loud prayers and jollof rice, cousins with dance moves and firewood stories. Marvin stood quietly, Amaria in his arms, as Savannah gave a toast. She was born in chaos, Savannah said, eyes shining, but raised in calm, and she's proof that even the darkest men can create light. Marvin's jaw tightened. His hand squeezed hers. Her name is Legacy, Savannah finished, because that's what we're building now. Not fear, not war, but something lasting. Everyone clapped, but Marvin just stared at his wife like she was the answer to every prayer he never dared speak aloud. Later that night, after everyone had gone, they sat alone on the rooftop, Amaria asleep between them on a blanket of stars. The city glittered below. The waves crashed gently in the distance. Marvin poured 2 glasses of red wine. Savannah raised a brow. Wine, not whiskey. He smirked, trying something soft for once. She sipped. You've changed. He nodded. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. For you, for her, for the man I saw in your eyes. She leaned into him. Do you miss the old life? He was quiet. Then, no, but sometimes I still hear it. The roar, the ghosts, the darkness. Savannah laced her fingers with his. Then we light candles, together. Just before midnight, Marvin tucked Amaria into her crib and returned to the master bedroom. Savannah stood at the window, backlit by moonlight, wearing nothing but silk in the calm of a woman who had survived. He came up behind her, slipped his arms around her waist, and whispered, "Thank you." For what? For never running, for staying, for saving me from myself. She turned slowly, placed her palm over his heart. It was never about saving you, Marvin. It was about reminding you that you were worth saving. Outside, the mansion lights dimmed. The old life had ended. The new one had begun. And in the hallway, a single painting now hung, a family of three, smiling, glowing, whole. Beneath the gold frame, in soft cursive engraving, were 5 words: built from ashes, chosen forever. Not all love stories begin with roses. Some start with ruin. Savannah didn't just fall for a king, she taught him how to kneel. And Marvin didn't just protect his family. He became the kind of man worth protecting. Because in the end, love isn't about how loud you roar. It's about who makes you whisper, "I'll change for you." This was The Mafia King Chose Me, Part 3. And if you thought that was the end, darling, we're just getting started. Subscribe to Shan Stories, where African hearts speak and unforgettable tales come alive. Dear viewers, what lesson did you take away from this dramatic tale? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.